So one of my attributes is bravery, because I've done a non-linear PowerPoint presentation, which doesn't work with a clicker. And so my aim in this presentation for everyone online as well is to try and get you to consider, or maybe even try, graduate attributes as a way of valuing a broader range of attributes in the assessment of student work. And I love what David White said yesterday about his approach of individual becoming. So the idea of an individual becoming, graduate attributes are about an individual becoming what, and the why of that as well. The why, in this case, I found is in Howard Gardner's book on multiple intelligences. He really was saying we need to recognize the complete range of human intelligences, and also to be able to mobilize the great spectrum of human abilities. Really, that's what we should be about. And this is 30 years ago, this quote. This was a time when my son was doing his HSC, high school certificate, in Sydney. Unfortunately, a young girl, overwhelmed by the stress of upcoming exams, took her own life. This actually affected my son deeply and all his friends, and actually as an educator really said to me, what are we valuing in assessment? And this is what started the whole journey about could graduate attributes be a way of valuing something else? So what I'm going to show you now is the result of 20 years and a PhD and lots of trial and error, putting things in place. Doesn't look much for 20 years, but it's 5 commonly used emojis. And it's a meta model of graduate attributes. And that's CAPRI. And review is software I designed really that actually accommodates lots of different models, but in this case is the how of that might be put into place. And I'm suggesting that this is not just transferable to school context, but also all the way through those 3 stages of life that we all have. So looking at CAPRI, first of all, these 5 categories, and it is an acronym, Capability Assessment Progress Results Inventory. It's also an island on the west coast of Italy. These 5 categories came out from a long process of categorizing assessment criteria. We found that they fitted into these 5 areas. In fact, we didn't find a criteria that didn't fit into those categories. The emojis version, which came out very recently, this is launched publicly today actually. These are some descriptions that then get subcategorized for different degree programs. And the handout that you've got there, it's a 2-sided handout. The first side has a way of assessing presentations. You can try assessing this one using the ChatGPT generated criteria on that handout. And on the other side, you're invited to have a look at a task or project that you know well and see if you can generate an assessment criteria under each of those 5 headings. Maybe not now, maybe at lunchtime. So looking at the software, that's the how of this gets implemented. This is review. Academ is the UTS approved hoster. But software takes a long time, especially if it's embedding pedagogy like self-assessment, self-and-peer assessment, integrating graduate attributes into assessment. And so way back in 2002, this is reported in the Australian newspaper, and it flashed, who uses Flash now? It had student-facing dashboards and staff-facing dashboards, but because it generated from the assessment criteria coding these automatic pie charts, you could see immediately what the weighting was of any particular subject or group of subjects, and for students themselves to see where their attributes were being developed. So later, it was attributed as shifting that focus away from marks and grades into a wider set of attributes, and later on did get a commendation from Acode and Pearson. But I realized that actually it really needs to be modified into the high school sector, because high school is where we get our attitudes towards assessment. So if you want to have a look at that, there is a sandbox you can click on and have a go. You can have a go at marking our lovely student, who we fail quite often. And actually on that speaker box, there's a tear-off clip if you don't get that to look at. But looking first of all at the university sector, if you think about it, having had 13 years of getting top marks, particularly in Australia where they come out with one score, an 8R score, it's one number. It obliterates or obscures anything they did to get that mark. It doesn't even tell you what subjects they did to get it. So it's hard for them to understand that they're developing attributes across degree programs, across subject boundaries. So this short animation done by one of the design students there explains it.
13 years of your schooling life seems to be so easily summarised by one single number. This being your ticket into the university system. When we get to uni, we still do assessment briefs or take exams and go for good marks and grades. But how do these numbers help us with our development as individuals and our readiness for the real world? At UTS, they try to help us develop important graduate attributes to become well-rounded professionals, whatever that may be. In this faculty, there are 5 main graduate attribute categories, and we get extra feedback about our development because assessment criteria are colour-coded. CAPRI gives us a common dialogue with teaching staff through assessment criteria for tasks, our own self-assessment online, and grading that gives us feedback on attribute development. CAPRI gives us a shared language, and review provides the platform for us to link our marks and grades to the attributes we are developing. So now we can keep track of how our work is progressing and target areas of our learning we might want to develop. And when we leave uni, we can get feedback about graduate attribute performance from review online. So now we can be relevant and ready for our chosen future the moment we walk out the door.
So the key is actually to code these things, this meta model, with subcategories at criteria level. So the assessment criteria are released from those subject-based, project-based assessments, and students can see the progress over time. My presentation last year at Manchester has more details on some subject and student feedback from that process. Also at the university, there's 300 students per year come through, and they get support through their final 2 years of schooling in the high school certificate. Again, assessed by CAPRI, these 5 categories, subcategorized according to what that program requires. But getting inside the school context was a major journey. High schools, obviously, you get subjects and marks is a major focus. That's where we get our major attitudes to assessment. And in Australia, actually the 3D curriculum that the government's put together, it looks like these capabilities on the right side here are the focal point. But all the assessment really is based on these subjects that are the 8 learning areas that they have to do. They told teachers, however, that they had to teach and assess these 7 capabilities, or on the right-hand side here, as well as all the stuff they're doing for their main subjects. When they didn't do it, the government then spent lots of money developing tests, numeracy, literacy, and now they're into creativity. So we tried to use these, but the documentation is huge. It's very confusing. They conflated and confused all kinds of categories. So we had to do research and we ended up using our CAPRI model. One very brave principal supported his 90 teachers to implement review and CAPRI across all their subjects and projects. And this is actually their high school certificate interpretation, subcategorizing those. And because the software generates from the criteria these pie charts automatically, you can see which attributes are being developed in which subject areas, and actually, really more importantly, what's missing. And CAPRI, this new model, this is wearable research here. This is one of their teachers, Christine, who did a workshop last month with students, actually looking at different disciplines at university, different occupations and what attributes are required for those, and how that related to their own subjects as they've been going through this at school. So why do I think this is transferable to the career stage of life? That's the biggest part. And well, in careers, as we know ourselves, there's a lot of performance reviews. They don't have general capabilities, graduate attributes, performance reviews. That's largely a lot of 21st century skills lists and frameworks. Now, I've looked at a lot of these. Here's one, enterprise skills, problem solving, communications, it looks really good. When you start putting the CAPRI categories to that, what you see is a lot of weighting to different ones. What you see is missing is the blue. The blue attitudes and values, which is where ethics, social responsibility, sustainability, all those kinds of criteria are missing from a lot of these business frameworks. And if you look at this, therefore, I'm thinking primary and secondary, definitely transferable. University degrees, this is already integrated. This on the right, I've taken one which is called Fusion Skills, which is in the UK quite popular. You can see in the yellow, the communication collaboration, they've done in their 12 symbols, oral communication, there's a symbol for collaboration, symbol for written communication. And so they've actually brought those things together. So I believe that you will find all of these 21st century skills lists are translatable into these 5 categories, all of them. And a certain colleague, a research colleague, has confirmed that this is the case. Thank you.